Disney Infinity. Remember this game? Maybe? Yes? Well, here we go. I decided to make a video about Disney Infinity, Disney's answer to Toys to Life genre of video games. Toys to Life as a genre, if you don't know, was basically the idea of taking a toy, placing it on some kind of device, and boom! It's in the game. Get it? Toys to Life, like, the term. You get it. For a long time, I've been wanting to make a video about Disney Infinity. It's just one of those games that I've actually had since I was a child, and sort of nostalgia recently just flooded me with memories about Disney Infinity. So, might as well make a video about it, right? Express my personal feelings and thoughts and passions of a game towards an audience that might never watch this video, but hey, whatever, I'm still gonna do the video anyway. So without further ado, this is gonna be Disney Infinity. This is also going to be a 4-part series where each part's going to cover the first game, second game, third game, and of course the cancellation of Disney Infinity. But that's going to be future stuff. This concept was booming back in the early 2000s. I mean, to be back around this time with Toys to Life, it was legit booming everywhere. For myself, I would collect Skylanders and Disney Infinity figures all the time. But like everything in life, a fad eventually dies off, and this is none the difference than Disney Infinity and also Toys to Life. But you may be asking yourself, why did it die off? Well, I'm going to save that for later. So, questions aside, for now I want to revisit an old failed Disney product, Disney Infinity, to give you my thoughts on the game and what would eventually happen to Disney Infinity and why it was cancelled. Or should I say, cancelled, abandoned. Like the Bright Sun films, get it? I love his videos, by the way, they're awesome. Overall, though, let's start this series. In the late 2000s, there was an idea for a Disney game that would eventually combine multiple franchises together into one game, and the studio that came up with this idea was Avalanche Software, a small development company known for various Disney titles including Toy Story 3. This game is pretty important because it acts kind of like the pre-Disney Infinity, with many elements that would copy and form Disney Infinity. Eventually, after this game though, they would also take elements from another game they made, Cars 2, and eventually Avalanche and Disney Interactive would eventually propose a huge and massive project that would combine all factions of the Disney universe into one game. Doing all this though is easier said than done. Like, how do you combine all these Disney properties with varying art styles, and how do you collide them into something original and also that just makes sense? There are many different ideas for this and how it should be done over the years, like for example swapping heads like Skylanders Swap Force, which would have been really weird to say the least. Luckily for us though, this concept was eventually scrapped, but Disney would eventually bring the Toys to Life genre of games to Disney Infinity, so they can actually challenge Skylanders in the market, and then eventually in 2013, the first Disney Infinity was eventually released. Now, what was included in Disney Infinity? Well, the first thing you could get in Disney Infinity was the starter pack. Similar to Skylanders, you would get 3 figures, Sully, Jack, and Mr. Incredible. You would also get a portal device, which is where you place figures in the circle, but not like Skylanders. Also, you would get 3 playsets, which are kind of mini-world expansions into each Disney franchise. I guess Disney's Infinity's answer to a campaign. These expansions, like I said before, are mini-campaigns that show off each franchise's world. 3 of these are included, like I said, in the starter kit, and then 3 others would be sold separately that you can purchase on your own. Also, another really stupid rule of Disney Infinity is the fact that you can't cross over characters, which seems like a really weird idea to propose since, well, the trailers show all these characters crossing over, and it's one of the main factors that makes Disney Infinity so interesting. But many of the franchise owners did not want their characters to swap over in any other worlds. Like, for example, you can't have Sully on a pirate ship in Pirates of the Caribbean, which would be lit, but like I said before, they can't cross over. Also, adding on to the fact that this is already a Toys to Life game, Disney Infinity introduced the concept of Power Discs, which are sold separately in retail packages. These are special items in the game that you can unlock, ranging from weapons, tools, and even fucking paint jobs for Christ's sakes. They also came in these really dumb mystery packs. Now, this may not seem like a huge deal, but in my opinion, this whole concept sucks. For example, if Disney wanted to have special items, they should have just placed it or had some kind of option in the game to just buy digitally. You don't need to go out your way and buy these physical discs, which honestly are just pretty dumb. Also, adding insult to injury is the fact that the tower disc actually came into freaking mystery packs, which basically means that you'll be paying $5 for 2 discs that you don't even know which ones that you're gonna get. So you can buy a bunch of mystery power disc and you can get tons of duplicates and you don't even know what you're gonna get. Once again, you gotta love it in my opinion.
Oh, I've wasted my life.
Disney's response to this whole Power Disc mystery bag thing was apparently because they wanted to encourage trading in the Disney Affinity community. On paper, this sounds like a great idea, going to a convention and trading Power Discs with people, but it's a really inconvenient idea. Most people just want to buy the item that they want and just go home and play their game. I don't want to go to a convention with a bunch of sweaty Disney Affinity fans to trade Power Discs. Overall, it's a pretty dumb concept in my opinion. Now, also another mode that they included in Disney Affinity, and probably the most best selling point of the game, is the Toy Box mode, which is basically a more advanced version from Toy Story 3 with much more expanded features and acts like a Minecraft style editor of sorts. Here, you can literally create anything that you possibly want using Disney characters and assets, from creating your own version of Disney World to creating your own version of the city from Incredibles. It's overall pretty awesome, and like I said before, I'll give you my opinions on it later. But here's for the next section of the video. So what are my thoughts on Disney Affinity 1.0? Overall, I think Disney Affinity 1.0 as a concept is pretty awesome. Having all these franchises combined together into something like one game is a freaking amazing idea. But there are some inherent and systematic flaws with this whole game. For example, number 1, it's a Toys to Life game. Now, as a kid, I loved Toys to Life games. I loved going out and buying figures and placing them on the portal and playing the game. But as an adult, I think Toys for Life games as a genre is a pretty stupid idea for many reasons. For one, Toys to Life games are always a full investment. You can't just simply buy the full game and experience all the features. To experience the full game, you have to buy tons of add-ons, characters, expansions, and now adding annoyingly Power Discs to the mix. Honestly though, why would I even do this in the first place? If I can just buy another game with the full features or full amount of content that Disney Infinity has, but I just have to make one full big purchase instead of making constant purchases and investments like a Disney Infinity game. But with that being said though, and me accepting the fact that this is a Toys to Life game, I think it's actually a pretty good game overall. Not fantastic or great, and doesn't really fix any of the internal issues like I said before, but it's still a good game for me overall. For one, I think that the Toy Box mode in Disney Infinity is absolutely amazing. You can do a lot in the Toy Box mode in Disney Infinity and customize a lot of things. A great feature and honestly the best part of Disney Infinity as a whole. Also, I think that the Disney Infinity's approach to all the characters in the game and the figures look amazing. I think they all look fantastic and are all pretty faithful to their respective franchises and look great on your shelf. All the figures are nicely sculpted and very nicely designed, and the art style that combines all these characters together in one world honestly looks amazing, and I just really enjoy it overall. Now for the playsets part of Disney Infinity. Disney Infinity 1.0 has 6 total playsets, which is honestly a pretty good number. 4 original playsets of Disney franchises, while 2 are based off Disney licensed games basically. So without further ado, let's get into them. One of the playsets you get in the starter pack is the Incredibles playset, based on the movie. And how is the playset overall? It's alright. It's pretty decent. Of course, let me elaborate. I think that the combat in Disney Infinity's The Incredibles playset is pretty awesome, and the city is also pretty interesting and awesome. But one thing that just drives me insanely nuts about this playset is just the random spawning of robots everywhere in the freaking city. I could be walking down the street and then one of these robots just spawns in and attacks me for no reason. Like, bruh.
It tore me apart, but I learned an important lesson. You can't count on anyone.
Just let me see the city for Christ's sakes. Despite this though, I think that the story is pretty meh, and the playset's overall feeling and gameplay is also meh. Like, it's okay. I guess the big shtick for this playset is combat, but Yeah, overall, I guess it's fine. It's a nice, decent little starting playset. The second playset you get into the starter pack playsets is the Monsters University playset, which is of course based on the movie coming out at that year, the Monsters University movie. Instead, of course, just making it based off the more popular Monsters Inc., but that's besides the point. The figures for this playset you get to play as is Sully, Mike, and Randall, and the basic plot and gist of it is kind of similar to the movie. You're basically acting as MU or Monsters University, and you basically are in a competition with Fear Tech. You basically have to fight them and make a giant prank off contest, so to speak. And of course, at the end of the movie, like it is in the playset, you win the contest and your university wins. It's a pretty short and uneventful story, but it's overall neat and fun. And overall, I think the playset's also pretty good. It has a better niche than the Incredibles playset because it's more focused on pranks and pretty fun gadgets, which I think is a pretty fun and interesting aspect of this playset. The story is very meh, and I mean, honestly speaking, to really understand the story, you kind of have to watch the movie, but maybe that's the point they were trying to go for. I do think that the tone of the playset's really fun and nice, and overall, I think it's pretty short and also pretty awesome. And then we come to the Pirates of the Caribbean playset, which is the final playset included in the starter pack. And I gotta say right off the bat, this is by far the best playset in Disney Infinity 1. The figures you get to play are Jack Sparrow, Barbossa, and Davy Jones. And I gotta say, this is a fantastic playset. The scale of exploration in particular is so fun in Disney Infinity's Pirates playset. From buying your own ship to customizing it to fighting other ships to just sailing to other islands and collecting items and of course continuing the campaign of the playset, it feels so fun. The sense of exploration is extremely fun in this playset, and just having the ability to explore and having this vast terrain to really sail across and overall just having a decent story to boot with that just makes this playset an enjoyable and really fun time to play. Overall, a great playset. It almost feels like a mini Sea of Thieves in the sort of way, without all the stupid things that Sea of Thieves has, you know, like the freaking Kraken. And glitches. Now for the other three playsets that were sold separately. The fourth playset, the Cars playset, lets you play as McQueen, Mater, Holly, and Francesco. And Francesco. Yeah,
Soy Francesco!
jokes aside, I always think Cars is just an extremely weird franchise, but that's besides the point. Overall, though, this playset, it's fine. I'm not really huge into racing games overall because it's kind of not my niche, but I think a whole open world Cars game is overall pretty decent and very interesting. The racing mechanics are similar to Mario Kart, and they're all pretty fun and interesting, and overall, I think the fun exploration of this playset, it's pretty decent, but not my favorite. Also, on a side note, if you have Francesco, like the figure, you can actually, at the very end, deadass race against yourself at the very end. So basically, you beat yourself at the end. I don't know, I just thought that was hilarious, but whatever. The fifth playset was based on the most popular movie of all time, the Lone Ranger movie. Not gonna lie, does anybody actually remember this movie? No? It just seems really strange that they would make a playset about the Lone Ranger and not Frozen, since Frozen was insanely popular that year. Regardless though, I think the playset is overall fine like most of these playsets. The world itself is kind of just a little mini Red Dead Redemption with little towns and little Wild West mechanics. I think the best thing about this playset is actually the introduction of the train mechanic. This mechanic just basically involves hooking certain trailers up and switching out trailers on your train as it passes by towns, and so you can get the necessary supplies to people. It's overall a pretty interesting mechanic overall. On the criticism though, the story for this game, it's not really good at all. I really have to quotes when I say story in this playset because there is really a lack of story. I said there was a lack of story in the Monsters playset, but there was kind of a story there. In the Lone Ranger thing, it's just kind of doing side quests and then the random ending cutscene comes in. That's not really a story, but it's whatever. Overall though, the playset which you can play as the Lone Ranger and Tonto, which it's actually really funny that Johnny Depp is actually playable as two characters in Disney Infinity, Sparrow and Tonto, is pretty funny. But besides that though, overall the playset's meh. And then the final playset of Disney Infinity 1 is the Toy Story in Space playset. And overall, it's like most of them, it's pretty decent. Unlike the others though, there's not really a huge gimmick to it, to be honest with you. I guess kind of combat is the gimmick and maybe the goo, but overall, it's a decent playset, and it was fun hearing the Toy Story characters once again. With the playsets out the way, the Toy Box mode in Disney Infinity is once again really fun as hell. Once again, you get a variety of tools, and I've actually made some pretty sick-ass creations in Disney Infinity 1, and overall it's fire. I do think there are eternal flaws though, like I said before, with the Toy Box mode. Like, the Toy Box spins idea was really stupid, but that's really only for Disney Infinity 1 because they got rid of it later on. But overall, fire. Overall though, Disney Infinity 1 is a pretty good game despite its internal flaws. Disney Infinity 1 also, when it came out, was a huge massive success, selling millions of copies. And with this of course came the announcement of Disney Infinity 2.0, the sequel. So, like I said before, this is part 1 of this series, and the next part we'll be covering 2.0. So, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next part. See ya!